Welcome to a bright and beautiful morning with your host Sangeeta Singh. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an amazing feeling for me to bring you this beautiful, wonderful, and very wisely chosen topic on this great webinar. Yes, today we come together to discuss on the wonderful and great ways of unlocking the right parenting techniques. And all this is brought to you by ICICI Lombard General Insurance. Well, talking about unlock, somewhere we can actually see the telltale signs of recovery and positivity around us. Yes, in India, very gradually, safely, we have actually progressed into unlock phase 1.0. Ladies and gentlemen, and while I say this, of course, it has not been easy, talking about the lockdown phase for all of us. I mean, we did see that this particular crisis is unprecedented. Yes, this kind of a scale, this kind of a magnitude of crisis, it is for the very first time that the world is seeing it, and each one of us are actually experiencing it. Amidst all this anxiety, all this anxiousness, we at ICICI Lombard, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a constant endeavor and attempt to bring you some great minds, experts, leaders, and visionaries to talk about some very, very pertinent topics and fundamentally, about the ideas, insights, and everything that is going around in our life to mitigate, through these very, very tough times. Yes, this particular lockdown is kind of an uncharted space for all of us. Each one of us are actually trying to make sense of the COVID-19 with schooling from, homeschooling and work from home. The distinction between home, work, and school, all these identities have actually come in one space. It has been difficult for parents and rather more difficult for the kids, for the adolescents around us. So today, ladies and gentlemen, yes, while the world is actually going through a drastic change, we are here discussing this great topic, and of course, the most relevant one, unlock the right parenting techniques. Parenting under normal circumstances is also kind of difficult, right? And throwing a pandemic, it's a complete mix, and then it really moves to a next level. And addressing us on this wonderful topic, we have a great mind and expert here with us. And it is a pleasure for me to introduce you to this wonderful personality alongside us. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have with us Mr. Hitesh Sharma, founder, educator, and just to let you know that he's here to share positive and proactive parenting techniques to engage better with kids in, of course, these very negative and tough times. And also, while we are in the lockdown phase 1, he's here to also make us understand that how we're all going to adapt to the new normal ways of life. Let me welcome Mr. Hitesh Sharma right here on the screen with us. Sir, good morning.
Morning. Good morning, Sangeeta. Good morning, everybody. Sangeeta is very, very generous with her words. So we'll start now. So parenting is very hard, especially parenting in COVID times, and then there is an uncertain future. What to do? The two things which all of us spend most of our time uh, and which our life goes on, and our relationships, long-term relationship and parenting. They're long-term investment, like just like the insurance business is, and both of them are hard. The parenting is hard, carrying on long-term relationship is hard, uh, and you know that, and it becomes extremely hard just when there is a pandemic situation, when the boundaries between home and office are blurred, when there is one side there's a pressure cooker is going on, the other side the microwave, and there is an office Zoom call is going on. It becomes extremely hard for parents. I will share my presentation, and so even if in normal circumstances parenting is hard, it is extremely hard in a time like this. And what we need to see, what we can do, and what kinds of framework we can provide to parents so they can cope with this time better and help their children. And in a time like this, what is also true is that there's a growing uncertainty about future. There is a deluge of negative information. And with this information, the children are getting bombarded every single day. At EduPeer, our endeavor is to empower parents so that they can navigate through uncertain time like this and help their children. Now, there used to be an old saying that it takes a village to raise a child. Now, in a time like this, when most of families are nuclear family, and in most of the families these days, both parents are working, parenting has become very hard. And first of all, I would like all parents to acknowledge that it's a very, very hard work. Sometimes we are caught into two words. We want to be like our mothers and our like fathers, and at the same time, we realize that the support system which used to be around is no longer there. Because it's not there, it takes that much harder. And while we will spend next 30 odd minutes in discussing about parenting, I want you to mentally visualize the image of your child and say that next 30 odd minutes, let me figure it out. How can I be a better parent? And what kind of a parent I am? And what kind of a parent I can be is what we will talk about it. Now, the key aspect of our discussion here today is that parents can help and parents can do something about what is going around us. You may want to know why parents need to learn parenting, because we just discussed now that it used to take a village to raise a child, and now we are in a nuclear family and troubled times and uncertain world. That's why parents need to learn what parenting can be. There's a lot of research and a lot of work which has happened. When I read, sometimes I wish I had that much of knowledge when I was parenting my daughter. But anyway, we'll play a small video for you. In this video, I would like you to see about a 2-year-old child. It's just a minute-long video. The child is going to do two things in this video, and her mother you won't see, and her mother is giving her some instruction. I want you to pay close attention to what this child is doing, and also make a mental note of what this kid is doing here, and what is the mother is doing in this video. Can we have that Instagram video, please?
Okay, so I'm gonna put the chocolates right here. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, you can only have 3 of them. I'm gonna give you 3 of them, but wait, you have to wait till mommy comes back, okay? I have to go to the bathroom.
Okay.
So let me go to the bathroom, and then you can have it, okay?
Okay.
You're gonna wait for mommy?
Yeah.
Okay, wait for me, and then you can have 3, okay?
Okay.
Okay, wait for me.
Okay. Patience, 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 patience.
Okay. Oh, I'm back! Did you win?
Yeah.
Okay, you can have 3.
I'm glad you would have watched this video, and it's a pretty interesting one, and obviously a very cute one. This is a version of a famous marshmallow test. It has been done time and again. It gives some very early indication of self-restraints that kids can demonstrate, and delayed gratification is linked with career success and emotional resilience. Here you will notice that the girl is quite smart. There are two interesting things this girl has done, and that's why I was asking you to, while watching the video, note what this girl has done. One, she holds back herself. She doesn't eat the candies which her mother is offering. And the second thing she's doing, she's talking to herself. She used the word patience, patience to talk to herself. And it has been seen time and again that the children who develop early on self-talk, which can help them overcome the small obstacles which are there in front of them, do very well. Now, there is one, and I want you to go home and try a certain version of marshmallow test at your home. But at the same time, if your child ends up eating candies or cake or a chocolate, don't be disheartened. It is just a one more indicator of what our kids are and what we can do about it. Now, when we are in the midst of this kind of pandemic and negativity around us, what has research shown that there are three things which children are very afraid of, and most of the time they don't know how to articulate these fears. They are very worried about the physical health of their parents. There is a one unspoken fear which plays in their mind that what happens if their parents die. The other fear which is there in the kid's mind is the financial stability of the family. If they hear so much of conversation around people losing their job, economy is not doing well, they don't know how to process this. And lately, what is happening around us that the families are falling apart, and this worries children a great deal. So what we've seen is that these are the three unspoken fears which are there in the children's mind. Now, parents need to be aware of it. What they should not do is to belittle these fears and tell them that it doesn't matter. Because if your child is a 6-year-old or a 15-year-old, they will process it very, very differently the way you process it. But it is important to know what plays on their mind. Now, there is a great study which has been done in Spain recently, and Spain experienced a very high degree of deaths, very high number of deaths because of COVID-19. And they have come out and said there are four things which the children are facing because of the lockdown, which has gone for now, I think 75 plus days. They are very anxious about it, and this anxiety leads to a lot of irritability. And because of this irritability, they may find it very difficult to concentrate. The children don't know how to stare a screen for hours together. And an impact of all this may lead to some physical symptoms. Or you may see certain amount of mood swings in them and certain amount of the behavioral change you may observe. Now, what can parents do about it? Now, what is the studies have shown that the outdoor activity and spending time with friends make the cognitive and emotional development of the children. Now, I'm not so sure, depending on your circumstances, but whatever the opportunity comes for you to spend time outdoor in safe way as much as possible, please spend that much of time, because going out is a key aspect of their development. And also, the other aspect of parenting is children mirror their parents' views and stress level. If you are very stressed about the current ongoing crisis, your children will mirror it. In our webinar, we invite parents to learn about their stress processing also. That you cannot expect children to process stress better if you yourself are getting stressed very easily. So from this webinar, what can you take out? From this webinar, what you can take out is a certain framework of evaluating yourself. So yes, in some ways, we are going to give you some homework at the end of the day, at the end of this webinar, where we'll share a few parameters, and we will invite you on the 5 parameters that we share. Where do you see yourself? It will be a great idea if you can do it for your spouse, and your spouse does it for you, and you will learn some bit about yourself. We are borrowing this 5 pillars of parenting, which came from a study done by MIT. And in the center, there is some analogy that we have used. We will come back and talk about it. So the 5 pillars of parenting, or which you can see your own parenting style. The first one is love and connect. The parenting is about connecting with our children on every single day, and you have to give them a very simple reassurance that you will support them. Now, what we would like you to think about it, emotionality is not fragility. It is not that if our child is feeling anxious or feels like crying, it means that they are fragile and they will not be able to deal with the ups and downs of life. Emotionality is a part of healthy growing up, but it doesn't mean that they are harmed for life and nothing will happen. So please don't confuse emotionality with fragility. Now, what the parents are supposed to do is to create some space for uncomfortable emotion. What do we mean by uncomfortable emotion? Like in the previous slide, we talked about the emotionality is not fragility, is that it is okay to feel sad. We should not brush the sadness under the carpet, or we should not say that, why are you sad? Why can't you be happy? These kind of brusque solutions don't work for children. So it is okay for some time if they're feeling sad, is that you parents give a space where they allow them to feel sad. The other thing you will keep hearing from us in this talk again and again is to listen. Uh, what we have seen, and we work with many young children, and they come back and talk to us and tell us that the only message that they keep hearing from their parents is, "Padhai kiya kya?" or "Have you done your homework?" or "Have you studied?" What we have seen is that parents, I remember one young boy came and told that my parents don't talk to me anything else apart from studies. So what we will invite you to think and pause and listen to your children. And the key aspect which the message needs to go from the parents is that this is a process of building resilience. The tough time do get over, and this too shall get over. You are the authority figure in their life, and you need to provide this message in an unambiguous manner that this too shall pass. The second aspect of parenting pillar is monitor and observe. Now, what does it mean? That you should trust your children unconditionally, but it is your job as a parent to verify what they do. Now, especially if you have an adolescent at home, children below the age of 11 and 12 behave very differently. And when they get into their teens, or when they get into adolescent phase, they see very differently. Uh, there is a lot of work which has happened on adolescent brain in last 2 decades. I will take you to just one couple of simple aspects of it. In the adolescent period, a crucial aspect of the brain, which is called prefrontal cortex, is not developed. What is prefrontal cortex is? Prefrontal cortex is about decision making, and it's an executive function of the brain. It gets developed by the age of 22 to 24. So your children are not in a position to, biologically, they are not in a position to assess the long-term impact of their action. Because they're not in a position to assess, you may see sometime because novelty appeals to them, they get into things which you don't want them to do it. But please recognize as a part of growing up, and please recognize the fact that the crucial aspect of their brain development is still under process. Also, the adolescent age is a time when children learn a lot from their peer. Now, peer influence can be good.
So if you could just put your PPT on, you've not put your PPT on.
How? I'm on my PPT.
You just need to share the screens.
1 second. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
You can see my screen now?
Yeah, I can see your screen now. Full screen. Just put it on the top.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, my barabar hai.
Sangeeta,
Yeah.
is it okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so peer influence can work both positively as well as sometimes may work negatively. And in a time like this, when they are not able to meet their peer group, it creates a huge pressure point for them, because talking to their peer group, laughing, joking, spending time there with them is a great stress buster. Now, that stress buster is not available to them, and that's why you may see some emotional aspect of it. Now, the third aspect of parenting um, uh, pillar is that it is parents' job to guide and limit. Be firm but flexible is the mantra that we advise parents to do it. Now, this is the number one question we are asked in all parenting work that we do about mobile phone. That my child spends too much of time on mobile phone. Now, what we invite parents to think about it, that mobile is like a technology. It's like fire is a technology, knife is a technology, mobile is a technology. And there is a healthy use of a technology. So what we are saying is that what parents can do to guide their children's behavior towards a responsible usage of a technology or a digital device. When we're saying what is the responsible usage of a mobile technology, there's 6 aspects we are listing here. You want to know more about it, you can get in touch with us. But the number one point which is we would like you to think about is that you are the role model. What does it mean? That your own usage of mobile phone will determine your children's use of mobile phone. Also, the second point here is that mobile time is not a reward or punishment. If you say, okay, you do your homework in next 30 minutes, then you can play with the mobile for 1 hour. Or at the same time, oh, you have not done your homework today, I will take away your mobile phone and I will not give it to you. That this way, the reward and punishment method does not encourage children, or it does not develop in them what is a healthy way of dealing with this technology. So please find, and there are 6 points we are discussing here, and you will get there. Uh, the the dinner time or any meal time in the family should be a no phone time for everybody. Now I know that all of us are at home, the calls are happening at odd time, but you need to make an effort at least to have maybe a breakfast or dinner where the whole family get together and say the next 45 minutes we will spend listening to each other and talking to each other, and nobody will go on the mobile phone. The fourth, there will be occasions when your children will throw tantrums, but you need to understand that mobile devices are made by some of the smartest brains in the world right now. By design, they are addictive. And in the previous slide, we discussed that the children's prefrontal cortex is not developed. Because the prefrontal cortex is not developed, they don't know the implication of spending incessant time on mobile phone. So you need to put some limits on this and be firm about it. Now, what we are saying always work is to involve kids in the decision making. If you behave in an authoritarian manner and say my way or highway, it leads to a certain amount of revolt, and they will not be able to listen to you clearly. Now, for it makes sense to involve them in the decision making, and there is some give and take can happen. The other aspect of it is make sleep a priority. Almost about an hour before the sleep time, you need to make the no gadget time. Now, if you are going to bed and even at your bed, you are checking on Facebook and Instagram, your children are watching it and they understand that. So first of all, you need to take mobile out of your life as much as possible, and then you can make the demand on your children. Now, what I've written that teenagers are different. There is an enough study which has come out which says that teenagers sleep late. So if your teenager at 12 o'clock is chatting with a friend, uh, you need to learn to ignore some aspect of it, because their body clock is very different. I know there are other complications related to it, but we will talk about it if somebody has a specific point about it. Now, what you also need to understand, especially in the adolescent age, their highs are highs and lows are low. If they feel bad about something, they will really feel bad about it. Now, your age is going to be almost 3x of your child age. Suppose your child is 13 years old, probably mother and father will be 39 plus or just around that time. Now you have 39 years of experience behind you, not your child. So you may say, what happened if you miss your friend's birthday, or what happens if you're not able to go to school? Please understand, for them it is very, very different. It's a matter of almost like a life and death. So their highs are highs and lows are low because of the biologically the age they are in. The fourth aspect of uh, parenting model is that you are their hero. It is sometimes it is always scary that how our children are learning from us on everyday basis, and that learning happens by osmosis, not because you are giving them some good behavior lessons and they are listening to you. In our live workshop, when we don't do this on webinar or Zoom, we invite parents to fill this blank slide. The response of this cartoon is a kind of a response your children will learn from you. So you could put yourself in either of the situations, that you are driving and you splash water on somebody. What will be your responses? Similarly, you could be the passerby who got the water splashed on himself, and what will you say? Now, the response which parents end up unconsciously in this kind of situation are giving a message to their children and saying that this is also a good way of behavior. Now, it is a very simple thing that you want your children to follow certain rules, but when it comes to a traffic light, you jump the traffic light and say, nobody was watching me. Now, your children can also get the same message that if I can break the rule when nobody is watching me, it's fine. So, parenting is a lot of about setting yourself as an example. Now, the fifth aspect of it, uh, this is a framework which has been developed for global market, and it talks about provide and advocate. I don't think in India this is a problem, but there is some another aspect of it which I want you to know about it. There are four ways children feel emotionally secure in a house or in a family. They need to see the authority figure or a parent in front of them constantly. So the scene provides a kind of an emotional security. The security that you are there if things go wrong and you will take care of them provides them a sense of security. The safe environment which parents can provide, that they will be looked after, provides another aspect of emotional security. And the last aspect of it is that if things go wrong, my parents are there to provide me comfort or listen to my anxiety. You provide soothe. So when it comes to developing emotional stability in our children, please remember these four S: seen, security, safety, soothe. Now, what we would have seen us talking about many a times is empathy. Empathy is that you also share your own stories, that when you were 12, 13 years old, you got scared because of this. Now, what the children learn by that is that it is okay to be scared, it is okay to feel sad, it's okay to feel nervous. So parents need to listen to the children and spend some time and tell them that you know and you can understand how are they feeling. Now, what we talked about here are 5 pillars. Now, why 5 pillars are important for us to know? It is possible that we may be strong on one or two of them, but the third or fourth of them, we will not do it. Now, what parenting is required is like anything else in life, different strokes for different folks, or horses for courses. Different situation demands different parenting style. In an uncertain time like this, you may have to let go of many other things, but make sure that you provide an emotional stable platform for them to deal with this scenario. Now, these are the 5 parameters that we discussed. Now, if possible for you to take out a paper and pen, don't do it now, but just note down this 5 parameter and rate yourself on this 5 point score. The 5 point score are the 5 parameters are love and connect, monitor and observe, guide and limit, model and consult, provide and advocate. And do you do it all the time, frequently? Don't know. Sometimes, like this, you can rate yourself. Or the better method where we do in offline workshop, we ask both parents to rate the other person. So the husband rates wife and wife rates husband, and then they exchange notes. Now, it is not necessary that both of you need to do the same thing. It is possible that one person may be very high on monitor and observe, and the other person may be very high on model and consult. It is a family unit which needs to evolve, not so much about one particular person. And you may want to do some bit of self-reflection once you get your own score. Now, there is another short 3-minute video we will play, because we are raising children nowadays. Suppose your child is in ninth standard today, and he will be starting work now. From ninth standard to 12th standard, there are 4 years of school, then there are 4 years of college, and let's say 2 years of post graduation. I did my MBA 25 years back, and that put me into a smaller pool. So the master degree is today's bachelor degree. So we are talking about 10 years. If your child is in ninth standard, just think about it, 442. So your child will join the workforce in 10 years. So if you are in 2020, it is very difficult for anybody to forecast what life is going to be in 2030 or 2028 or 2026. Now, what is a small video by Vivian Ming on how to raise children who are better craftsmen for future. So just watch this. It's a 3-minute video. You will hear your own. It's about people like us. Can we have the video, please?
So how do we future-proof our children?
So you need to raise someone who, when the world changes, they adapt. And that may be easy to say, but it turns out humans do not like to adapt. And that is a profoundly rarefied skill. We need to focus on building better craftsmen. That's my job as a parent. We have so many fabulous tools available. But tools without a craftsman is pointless. And if you're a parent right now, particularly upper middle class, and you're thinking what I desperately need to do is build the right tools, study the right things, get great test scores, the right university, onto the right job, you're not building a craftsman. This is the mistake so many parents make, trying to guess the life that their kid will lead, and then leading it for them in their heads. You want to know why Google pays $1 million as a bonus to sign a high-end data scientist nowadays? They do it because those people know how to explore the unknown. Build that explorer. Oh, that was supposed to be a short answer, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So if you want to be an amazing parent, I'm not saying it's easy, but I am saying that there are some simple notions. Be the person you want your child to be. And don't reward them for being good. Being good is its own good. It's not something that someone should get a Twinkie for, or $1, or anything else. When someone shows you something, my daughter draws pictures, it is amazing. She's actually a really good artist. And I never say that. Oh my goodness, this is beautiful, you're beautiful. Nothing like that. I tell her what I actually see. This is part of how she learns. I see what's different than what was there before. You know what the best reward for a kid is? Attention. It's not praise, it's not stuff. You need them to be passionate about their craft. And that will never come from being worried about whether they're getting the right grades, worried about whether they're making you happy, or whether their friends will think less of them. Sometimes it takes a lot of work to master a new tool, but they will have spent their whole life learning how to master anything that comes their way.
Life. So I hope you found this video from Vivian she's a big time speaker on this in the speaker circuit, talking about what the future holds for us, and you will get to realize that what is it required for us to raise better craftsmen for future. Now, this is a very famous saying by Gautier, and I love it. And I think somewhere our job as parents, it's about uh, there is a potential in our children, and this goes back to raising better craftsmen. Uh, Sometimes we get too much worried about what's going on with their academic performance or what is happening currently, and we don't see our children as complete individuals. So if we see that there is a certain potential in them, and our job uh, is like a gardener, and the analogy that I use for parenting and relationship is that our role is of a gardener who needs to attend to the plant every single day. So if you see the potential in our children and we see our job as enabling or helping with them, it will be great. Now, what we do, we believe in raising calm and confident young adults. We are an academic counselor, but we feel that there has to be more than education, and we believe in holistic development of children. And we recognize the fact to help children, we have to help parents. If we are not able to help parents, it is very difficult to help children. So this is our number. You can get in touch with us. Thank you. Over to you, Sangeeta.
Thank you, Tesh. Thank you so much. It was absolutely insightful, and of course, the thoughtful note that you concluded this great session on. And let me tell you, we've quite a few questions coming in for you. And ladies and gentlemen, while we get into the Q&A, make sure that we have the questions flowing in case we have queries. But yes, I am already holding with a lot of those. And talking about unlock to begin with. Of course, all of us have seen the phase of lockdown, and now we are progressing into unlock. So, firstly, very very important, wherein kids were there indoor. Now there is a new normal in terms of hygiene, in terms of a lot of safety measures. So, how do we really inculcate all of this into our children now and get them used to this new normal while they, over after a month or so, whenever they're going to step out, and how do they get adjusted to this new normal?
Oh, very simple. Whatever parents will do, children will do. So if you are exercising higher norms of personal hygiene, washing your hands, uh, and checking with them every now and then, and doing it yourself, children will observe it and follow it. So you have to demonstrate to them that this is, even if the lockdown is lifted, but the pandemic is still around and it can still affect us. And involving them in the decision making process helps them, especially if you have grandparents staying at the house, that we have to, all of us have to do the higher level of hygiene and safety standard to protect the grandparents at home. And what we have seen when you involve children is that they are responsible for other adults in the house. They take on that extra responsibility very well. So lead by example and involve them, that their action matters, and their whatever they will do, it is important for the entire family.
So basically, for them, that ability to respond, to be responsible. And this is where I'd like to bring on, when our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, said that, it's time to be Atmanirbhar. So how much of it really needs to be reflected into our children, actually making them more responsible, more self-independent, and, so how do we kind of bring this particular Atmanirbhar, this whole emotion and this entire attribute to our kids?
Okay, uh, we are responsible for our own conduct, our own behavior, our own attitude. But at the same time, we exist in an ecosystem where our action will also impact everybody else. So we are a part of a larger ecosystem, and the old Indian saying of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is very important. If I am affected, so it's a very, this pandemic COVID-19. I may be affected by it, and I may be asymptomatic, but because my immunity is strong, but I may affect others. So what we are saying is that, and the interpretation of Atmanirbhar that we have either we are responsible for our actions so that society doesn't get impacted by that. So what we are saying is that what you asked before this is that the children's action matters to not only their family, to their friends. Sooner or later, they will go out and play with other friends. And because they're going out and playing with other friends, they need to exercise more caution and more safety. Now, there's a way a message needs to be communicated without being scared. So if parents operate, so what is important is what is the platform from which the parents come. They come from over anxiety and feeling of uh, safety, or they come from a we can do something about it. And if things go wrong, even then we can do something about it. I think both aspect needs to be calculated.
So somewhere the mindset really, really does play a very, very important role, specifically towards the parents and towards the elders in the house. So that, kind of gets me to another question that, is it really, really important sometimes to kind of not expect too much out of ourselves as parents, because, we can kind of take that leverage of cutting the slack and for the kids. Do you think so? Because, it's really important that you put your own mask first. So how would you, uh,
Okay, parenting is hard. I think there is no manual for it. There is no rule book. There are no milestones for it. You put in 20 odd years of emotional effort in raising a child, and it is very natural to feel very anxious about it. So I'm a parent, I know, and I don't think I've arrived as a parent. So that's why I think parenting is a bit like, and the two examples. One, we use an analogy in that where we talk about five pillar of parenting. Parenting is like being a swimming coach. And what does it mean to be like a swimming coach? A swimming coach cannot swim on behalf of his or her student. A swimming coach job is to make sure that the children he is teaching swimming, they learn swimming and they survive. The swimming coach cannot let the children drown. So parenting is like a swimming coach. We have to teach our children to swim in the journey called life. But we can't let them drown, but at the same time, we cannot swim on their behalf. We have seen many parents take on all the work. So they're doing their homework also, they're coordinating everything. If you're doing all this thing for them, you are not equipping them in any which way to swim in the life journey. So we would like parents to pause and think about it that their role is a swimming coach. One. The second is we've seen many parents get tired of it. Now I'm using literally in a ritual way that I told my child day before yesterday, don't do this. And it is not even 48 hours and he or she is doing this. Now, now, so that's what we're saying. It's like gardening or like spiritual stuff. If I'm asked by God to remember me, God, that we have to remember God on everyday basis. Similarly, parenting is a non-stop activity. It doesn't get over because you told your child this is the wrong and don't do it. I told you to wash your hands when you come back from outside. You didn't do it. We discussed it yesterday. Now please realize that these are the behaviors norms which needs to be enforced every single day or maybe every single time. Your patience is very critical. So once you sign on a parenting contract, you cannot get the patience out.
between
So there's no running away from it.
there is no breather for parents at all? Or should we just sometimes kind of sit back and what do we do?
Okay, I know. So I know it is tough. I so how do parents deal with this constant demand to be ever vigilant and ever stuff and all that? So there are very simple things. There will be movements when your stress, your work pressure, the life will get to you. Now there are two, three simple methods to go about it. Suppose I had a bad day in office. Suppose I attended a bad meeting with my boss. Okay, and I'm in a foul mood. I'm really in a foul mood. And at that time, my child comes and say, "I want to eat something, or I want to do something and all. I want to play. I want to do something and all that. Or can I use mobile phone or do something?" At that time, what you need to tell your child, and that's where also it means that involving them in the decision making. that I had a bad meeting or I had a bad call. I need half an hour to process this. Okay, so you have to give me half an hour, find something to engage yourself, but for next half an hour, you need to give me space. Now, by doing this, what you're telling your children is that there is a way everybody, even adults, do get upset and they need some time off to process themselves. So you're enabling them in that process. And if at that time you try to be a good parent, you will be a miserable parent. You will end up saying things which you never intended to do. And suppose if it's a bad day and you really got upset with the children, for which you should not have been. Now, there is no harm in going back and saying, I'm sorry for my behavior. And it should not have happened. But as an adult, I also make mistake. Now, what you're telling your children that adults make mistake, and to rectify a mistake, the first step is to acknowledge your mistake and apologize for it.
Absolutely. And well, I have another question, and it says that is it kind of okay to quote examples of how we overcame some challenges as kids? I think you did briefly did make a mention of it. And will you also suggest them as a plan, or more of to coach them to plan anything that anxious management in children becomes a tougher job at times due to time pressure. As now we're also working from home, and with so many daily chores to be done, very much. But so actually a parent is filling up a lot of roles, for a matter of fact. So is there a particular plan that one follows?
So I will tell you one very interesting real life incident and will tell. So I recently met a mother whose daughter is in 10th grade, who will be going to 11th grade. So the mother is an economics professor, and and she is very, very worried that her daughter doesn't like maths. Okay, so she's saying that I tell every day my daughter that in my growing up days, I was exactly like you. I didn't like mathematics and I struggled. The mother gives her own example that in high school, I didn't study maths. I ended up going to college where I enrolled in economics, where mathematics is a critical component of study. Said it took me 2 years of grind to overcome and learn maths. I'm telling you from my experience that don't say that you don't like maths. You have to study it. The daughter doesn't study. Now the mother is absolutely at a wit's end that I am telling her something which I learned the hard way. Why my daughter is rejecting it. Now it's very interesting to observe this thing, and where parents sometimes say, you don't know, I traveled in locals, you are getting a car to travel and other stuff. Now, please realize that we are dealing with 13, 14 years old. They cannot transpose back themselves and say what was the life at that time when I was studying under a street lamp or something. The other aspect, going back to this math problem, the way the child is processing, my mother is an economic professor. So despite all the struggle, she's doing fine. So I will also go through some bit of struggle and I'll be fine. So what's wrong with it and all that? So there is nothing there's no compunction or need. I need to like maths at some stage in my life. If it comes, I will process it and I will do it. Now, so there are times like this when your example is not helping your children. Okay. So my suggestion is that you are doing it from your own, I think, all generosity and really, really parenting concern. But what we are not doing in this case is to process from the children's perspective. So your child needs to learn maths, and especially we have seen it, and I don't know how many mothers are watching or how many women will see. We see, and it's another global pandemic that the young girls these days reject maths. Okay, they don't want to study maths. Okay, and we see it so prevalent that it sometimes is mind numbing. So what we do and talk about to 13, 14, 15-year-old young girls come and say, I don't like it. And everybody wants to study psychology. Okay, I'm generalizing, so just allow me some leeway here. every 14, 15-year girl think that she's going to be the best psychologist because her friend came and confided in her. Now, they may be, I'm not denying that they will not be, they may be, but don't do it because you don't like maths. So one of the things I pose to such young children is that, let's say you go on a date with a boy who's very smart, who's the brightest engineering boy, gold medalist, and all that, but cannot speak 3 sentences. Will you be on date with him? They said no. I said, why not? But he's brilliant in math. So what? He can't speak 3 proper sentences and talk to you about it and all that. They said, no, that's not okay. So I said, now think from a boy's side also. He may not want to be on a date with a woman who can't do calculus. No, I'm just exaggerating here and all that. So what we tell boys as well as the girls, that language and math are life skills. Okay, you need to acquire them. They will be difficult. You ask a boy to write 500 words, they will find it extremely difficult. The same way a girl may find difficult to deal with trigonometry. But they both need to learn the other aspect of it. And we need to break some gender stereotypes here. And we need to invite young women to study maths, even if it's difficult. And that's where parents need to be firm. They need to study maths because it's a life skill. The boys need to learn language because it's a life skill. Okay, I'm sorry deviating on this, but to give an example, I thought let's take this example to illustrate the point. I can't.
Also, we have a question wherein, building confidence in children to become more self-reliable. So we've been speaking about how self-reliability is important and Atmanirbhar when we just spoke briefly about. But how can you really, some exercise to build confidence into a child?
Okay, I'm surprised how many times I will go back and talk about that how much parenting influence children, uh, especially about when the times are bad and when it's a stress. How do we deal with it? Are the parents themselves confident of dealing with that crisis, or they also uh, brittle under pressure? Now, I'm not saying that every parent is a God's incarnation, while maybe close to it for the children, but there will be bad moments. Now, how do you build confidence? Now, one other thing we have seen, that sooner when this pandemic is over, that sports helps building confidence. Sports and music, and we see in our family structure, in our social structure, the sports is gets discounted as a first at the first available opportunity, because we're so 120% focused on academics. Now, what we've seen is that what does the sports do, and what we're talking about confidence is an issue of temperament. The temperament is that there will be a good day and there will be a bad day. I need to deal with a good day in the same manner I need to deal with a bad day. Now, that there is no better way of teaching temperament or confidence than sports, which means nobody likes training, but whether you are feeling good or bad, you go out and do your drills. You may be very well prepared, but your opponent was better than you on that day and you lost a match. And when you lost a match, you have no other option but to be on training next day again. So this temperament, what you are saying, confidence, we call it a temperament of dealing with ups and downs in a similar manner, comes from sports. So what we tell parents, and we are sure that this will be over in next couple of months. Don't compromise on sports for your parents. If you want to help them, then be involved with it. Now, at the same time, I've seen where I stay, there is a swimming pool, and the mothers who have never got into the pool, or the fathers who have never got into the pool, giving all kinds of instruction to the children. Now that, no, the idea is that why don't you play sports together? So if you are asking, why don't you go out for a run together? Why don't you go out, parents and kids go out for a walk together? Let's go out and go for a cycling, go for something. Or even at home right now, you can play any number of card games. You can play music. You can play. Why don't you bake together and all that? So it's not necessary that everything needs to be a let's watch the Netflix together. I think we need to just broaden the family time outside the devices in a more holistic manner.
That takes me back to an anecdote. While I learned swimming, and this is exactly the look that I used to give it to my mom. And I said, "You don't know how to swim, and why are you putting me deep down there?" And I completely relate to. I think the problem somewhere from generations. I think my parents, I remember they telling me, "Oh, you kids are just." So I think we continue to say this, and it has continued. Maybe so. Talking about. Adolescents, usually they have a mind of their own. They're a kind of a rebel in their own stride. So how do you deal with this, at of course this particular time and even after the lockdown? So any particular tip, basically dealing with these kids who've got very strong mind of their own, and today they have their own ways of solving their problems, and they are far more innovative. Of course our anxiety does reflect on to them, but yet they still are, I guess, they really have this strong mind. And how do you deal with it?
So in our adolescent workshop when we do in schools, I show one slide where there's a quote where this, and we don't reveal the name of the person, at which person is saying the adolescent are useless, they're always whiling away the time. Then we show the second quote, and we say, which is again that youths are just loitering around, they're not focused, they're not respecting elders and all that. And then we say that, can you guess who would have written about this? The first one is was written by Aristotle, and the second one was Shakespeare. So there has never been a time when the adolescent and teenagers, the adults felt that, oh my God, moment and all that. And also we feel as parents, we feel that we must be the best behaved teenagers or adolescent in our own growing up days. I think we need to do a reality check and go back and ask our parents about it, that how difficult were we for them. So first of all, it's a biological age. Okay, parents need to understand that it is not that they are doing deliberately something to literally get onto your wrong side, but they are just learning to be more social. So this adolescent period, and there is, I'm surprised the amount of research which has happened on the adolescent brain in last 2 decades. It is a time when the children, so when you are under 10 years or 11 years old, parents are like big banyan tree. And when the adolescent age start, the children step out of their parents' shadow and they want to be the independent tree. So what you see as a form of a rebel is a exploration of one's identity. Okay, I am different. So there's a very strong desire that I am different from my parents, like this. Now, at that moment, if we quell all of it, is wrong. So we need to monitor and guide. We need to make some rule of appropriate and inappropriate behavior. I'm not so sure whether, I'll just give you a small example that uh, there was some case happened in Delhi that some adolescent posted some message for their classmate, and it got reported, and others,
The locker room.
locker room joke and all that. Now, there is an aspect of exploration of one's own sexuality in adolescent days and also of the opposite sex. But what is healthy and what is unhealthy? What is appropriate and what is inappropriate? Now, to know these cues, children are looking at their parents. So if parents don't talk about it and leave everything to school to talk about it, it gets a little complicated. So what we tell parents is, at home you need to define what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. You may decide, and you have to give them simple tools to evaluate what is right or wrong. The simple tool is, if anybody says something about your mother or your sister, is that okay? So when you are posting something about somebody, some woman, or woman is posting about men, it's very simple. Now give them some reference point. The reference point is, if the same comment is said about your family, will it be okay? So with that, you have given them a frame of reference that when something is happening, I need to evaluate it against this. So when they have that frame of reference, they know what would be the appropriate or inappropriate. So what is required is to understand and recognize that it is a part of growing up. This prefrontal cortex, the PFC, is is the executive part of the brain is not developed. And that's why we were saying in the presentation, the highs are highs and lows are lows. Okay. And certain amount of undercurrent and tension is desirable. Okay. It is not that you will pepper over all the difference of your adolescent. And the parents should not become their friends. Parents are not friends. Parents are parents.
And I love the way you put those points there. I reiterate that yes, reality check is very important. We as adolescents didn't behave any different. Okay, could be maybe somewhere even our parents did continue to say that to us. Rebel is more than a rebel. It's more of an exploration about your own identity, about your own gender. And as you very rightly said, that it is so important to sensitize your children about the things that are going around, like the very locker room incident. What they hear with their parents, amongst their elders in the living room, somewhere does make them form their own particular perspective and a mindset. Brilliant, thank you. And this we've spoken about the adolescent. One couple of more questions, maybe just two or three. Preschoolers right now, they have they're so used to going out in those preschools, in those nurseries out there, but today they're very much at home. So any particular activity that you would advise to keep them busy, to keep them engaged?
I think all simple card games, board games, involve them in cooking, cutting vegetable, cutting fruits, making them part of the day-to-day happening in the household. Uh, so they're not feeling that they're isolated. So there is a lot of work is happening in the household. Inviting them, okay, I will do the dishes, but take them out of the basket and arranging them is your responsibility. That's how you will help the family. They will feel part of it and all that. So I'm not so sure that parents all the time need to think about uh, a game only for them, okay, or a play for them and all that. Because what you're not integrating them, and most of our children, there are single family households nowadays and all that. Possible our children will be alone. So why don't we make them part of the family? That okay, now everybody has finished dinner. Why don't you clean the table? Okay, or why don't you fold the clothes, or take out the clothes from the washing machine and spread it because I'm doing this. So by involving them in these activities, also is a way of integrating them with the house. So I want parents to broaden the scope of these games, and everything is to be gamified, and everything needs to have fun. uh, no, there is a lot.
More to do with education and more with your studies and to your activities, more than that, rather everything that the kid, you kind of stop the kid from doing. At times the kid would just go and rub the table, and you say, no, 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 you're not doing that. So I think you can just kind of go back to that and say, okay, it's just fine to let go and just get them going with it, right? So you did make a mention, that single children, but then there are siblings, and I have so many at home, so and what happens to with all of this lockdown, and they are actually a tooth and nail for each other. So how do parents kind of take care of this particular the sibling fight problem now, for instance, that has been there?
Okay, see, certain amount of sibling rivalry is healthy. Okay, it's like certain amount of anxiety is handled is good, because called the nervous anxiety. If you're a sports person, there is a certain amount of tension you feel before the match. If there's an exam, you have to appear for it. There is a certain amount of there is a certain butterflies in the stomach. So some part of it is healthy. It just eggs you on. It just puts you into the focus and all that. Similarly, certain amount of sibling tension is healthy. Parents don't need to smother over it and say that you need to be the perfect support for each other and all that, because it's impossible. It is not possible. They will be at two different age group and all that. They're dealing with life in a different thing. In my friend's house, his daughter is 18 years old and the son is 12 years old. They just happen to be at two different age group and all that. So certain amount of their own identity formation is happening in whatever way you may do. For one thing, you may like child A. For the other thing, you may like child B. and then they may feel that, oh, for things like for academics you favor him, but for extracurricular you're favoring her. So this goes on in every household. So if it's happening in your household, you're not the only household where it is happening. So stop berating yourself that, oh my God, that why my kids are fighting all the time and all that. So
And with that, thank you, Hitesh. And with that, the on-screen time has, for kids and for parents and everybody at home, has actually grown exponentially in terms of now with work from home and with school coming home. So how do you kind of differentiate between that distraction and discipline? When we know that our kids are into Netflix, YouTube, and all of that, but also their online classes. So there's a lot of screen time. So how do we kind of give them that off-screen time, and what one thing needs to be kind of advocated to them?
okay, so if the three things, one, we gave some framework for parents to evaluate themselves or do some self-scoring and self-assessment. If the three things which I want parents to take from this talk or this discussion, one is the empathy and listening to their own children. It's very important. In our culture, uh, parents are so super anxious to give the world's wisdom to their children. Okay, so there is pouring out of them, and they're they're not stopping from any time. So their listening time is very, very less. So please expand on that one. The second part is, if there's a one area where parents need to actively do something about, is the mobile time or the digital device time. It is a serious issue. We are bringing up a generation which does not know how to focus on an activity. Okay, which is so attention deficit in this problem, and a significant aspect of that responsibility lies with parents. So parents need to do something about it, and they have a role to play. So what we are asking parents to do, and why that slide is very important, is that there has to be off-screen time.
Yeah.
And the off-screen time is for parents as well as for the children. And that's why we're saying the meal time is a no phone time. Okay. There is a time to do play cards, board games, cooking together, doing cleaning the house together, everything. And all these activities are part of a healthy family setup. So there doesn't need to be and there has to be, so that was fine, be firm but flexible, involve them in decision making. Now you set out a guideline that you can only have for half an hour of a mobile time. The kids spend 40 minutes that day. Oh, okay, now the punishment is that you will not get it for next day. No, don't do that. So that's why we try to frame it in some simple six rules, and then we're saying, now you have to do this day in and day out. Okay, it is not that I gave this sermon for 6 days and life should be hunky dory after this and nothing else is required. No, that's not true. You have to repeat that message every single day. It's just like the priest every single day tells you that there is a God. Okay, why can't he just stop saying it? Now I've already been told about this. Why you need to repeat it every day? So you need to repeat this every day.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, there is a lack of attention. There is a loss of span of attention. And all of us have been talking about this. And my last and final question to you is, while we go through this COVID-19 pandemic and this crisis, WHO did go out and say that, the next crisis that we might be looking at is a lot of anxiety and a lot of mental health issues. So, a couple of things for shift in the mindset for our parents and for our children before we sign off from this wonderful session.
Sports and music.
Sports and music.
Okay, actually we as parent owe this part, and I can't put any lesser emphasis than this. Now, sports, we talked about how it teaches temperament. When the child is playing sports, suppose your child is playing soccer, basketball, running, anything they're doing, they can't keep checking their mobile phone. So there's a mobile off time also. These sports make them physically strong. They feel confident about their body. They learn to eat healthy. So sports has so much collateral benefit that I don't know where else to stop. But we have seen and there is so much of study which is out there now, which is research study, and I want to literally plead with parents that if your child is physically active, the brain will work faster. I went to a school where there was a teacher from UK, and he told me the dilemma he faced in India. He's in a premium school in Bombay, and he said the parents withdraw the children when the exam time comes. He said, but what has it got to do with the exams? Because your children are physically active. So let me give you an example. When a chess grandmaster plays a chess game, in 2.5 hour game, they burn the same calories as somebody running a marathon. So what is required is that if our children are studying for 2 hours or 3 hours, the brain is consuming so much of energy. Now you need to give them some safety wall. The safety wall is a sports, gives them a safety wall for expanding their energy. So I just can't stop talking about sports, that how sports can be such all encompassing. They learn team spirit. If you have a single child, they don't know how to share things and all that. But when you go out in sports, you have to share your stuff, or you have to share a pass with somebody. You need to learn to get up on time. You need to learn to sleep on time. You need to just it just works beautifully. The other is music. In the entire history of humanity, no better antidote for anxiety than music. Okay, so music is, if as a family you can sing together, play a musical instrument, or learn a musical instrument together, or singing, or any kathak or bharatnatyam, anything you can do, you are significantly helping your child for future. So there is a life beyond books, schools, academics, Netflix, YouTube. Trust me, there's a big world out there. And that world, you don't have to spend money. You don't have to go out and do anything to do it. You don't have to buy some fancy gadgets. That world is there in your home, in involving and doing things together.
The life beyond being an Einstein or a Virat Kohli or a Vishwanath Anand, there is more to whatever the kids want to become. Thank you, Hitesh. That was amazing. We had a great, insightful session with you. So, ladies and gentlemen, hope you've really enjoyed, this wonderful unlocking of parenting techniques. So, anything else, Hitesh, that you would want to a message for all the parents that you'd want to kind of conclude on?
Oh, it's hard. Take a deep breath and realize that parenting is hard. Okay, I'm no master in it. I'm struggling it on a day-to-day basis. I just have a framework which I try to evaluate myself, and I share it with my friends and colleagues.
Thank you, Hitesh. Thank you on behalf of ICICI Lombard General Insurance. A big thank you for joining us on this webinar, enriching it with your thoughts, your experiences, and of course, your great studies. With that, ladies and gentlemen, yes, hope you've picked up those 5 wonderful parenting techniques. And just to close this, and just to leave you on a note, that make sure that you are evaluating yourself, you are rating yourself on what Hitesh just did make a mention of. On Love and Connect, monitor and observe, guide and limit, model and consult, and provide and advocate. And hope you've enjoyed this particular webinar as much as me, myself, Sangeeta Singh, alongside Hitesh Sharma. Of course, in association with ICICI Lombard General Insurance, we had a great time bringing this to you. Thank you so much. Please have a wonderful day. And of course, a great Unlock 1.0 phase. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you. Bye.